Hello, and welcome to video 4 of the 5-part video series we're doing. With this video, we're going to be talking about sealing the deal and making that final sale. Now, as you continue your call with the prospect, you're going to want to ask what are known as SMART questions. And what SMART questions are, they're basically just holding a conversation with someone. You ask them about what are their fears about using a certain product, what are their desires, what are they after. So that way you're able to tailor your responses regarding your product best to them. And so what you're going to be doing basically is digging deeper, finding out more knowledge so you can just talk to them better. Ask about them. You know, people love talking about themselves. For many people, it's their most favorite subject. So if you ask about them, they're not going to hesitate to tell you a little bit about themselves, about maybe their responsibility at the job, what have you. And I said this in a previous video, but it bears repeating now. People hate to be sold, but they love to buy. So this is what you're doing with asking questions. You're not trying to sell them a product. You're trying to get them talking so you know what they want, and then you can kind of offer the product as a chance, as an opportunity for them to buy. As you work your way through the call, a lot of times you're going to encounter resistance early on, or maybe midway through the call. For a lot of people, it's just a knee-jerk reaction. They're not looking to buy anything currently, and when they pick up the phone, they have a salesman on the phone. It's their first instinct to try to get you off the phone and get back to work. We don't want any. We already have our supplier. And a lot of salespeople, they're not up for the challenge. They just kind of, okay, and they hang up the phone. And they toss that into the second, third category, which is a never category. Well, that's not quite accurate, because a lot of these people, like I said, it's their first instinct. So we have to work our way around that. We have to utilize what is known as a pattern interrupt. A pattern interrupt is interrupting their pattern of saying no right off the bat to all salespeople. So we're going to say, oh, that's okay. Where's your current supplier? And this asks them a question. This is also a SMART question. And it gets them thinking. It's not part of the pattern just to start thinking of their own product. And maybe they might reveal some things that they're unhappy with their current product. And you can utilize that. You can say, oh, well, our product, we do this, 20% cheaper. So maybe you might want to switch to this. So that's how you can get around some of that early resistance while also using it to be more productive for you. A lot of times they'll also request literature, and it's not always a plot to get you off the phone. Maybe they actually want literature, but if they ask it pretty early on, they're most likely trying to just get you off the phone. So what you want to do is, well, hang on, let me ask you a few more questions so I can tailor this literature to your specific company. That can work. So perhaps the most important part of a relationship in sales, or any relationship for that matter, is listening. Only the prospect or the customer knows what they want, and you can get a lot of information out of them if you let it happen. This is what the technique of SMART questions is for. You ask deep questions, open-ended questions, and then you listen for their answers. You don't want to spend a whole lot of time talking over, because that's what salespeople are characteristically known for. Not a good thing. They don't want to pick up the phone and have to listen to a whole monologue over someone spieling about their product. Let them talk about their concerns, their desires, and then kind of tailor the conversation to reflect that. Hey, we do this better. I noticed you were talking that you wanted to do this better. As they're talking, as they're answering your questions, maintain eye contact over the phone. Now, what do I mean by eye contact over phone? It's just little statements that let you know they're listening as they're answering your questions. You can say, uh-huh, yeah, of course, as they're talking. And it just lets them know that you're there and you're listening. And finally, pause. Using the pause technique, pause for at least 2 seconds before and after talking. That way, you give them time to think and you give yourself time to think. Now, after you've been asking them some smart questions and you've got a little bit of information out of them, so that way you can know if your product or service is a good fit for their company, you're going to want to ask for commitment. Before you get into the call, you're going to want to have primary and secondary objectives. Your primary objective, obviously, is going to be to sell your product or service on the call. Secondary, however, sometimes they're not always open to a purchase at this moment in time. So for a secondary objective, you want to leave them feeling good about your company, leave them feeling confident. Maybe you can ask them about who their supplier is. These are all legitimate secondary objectives. If you have secondary objectives, these ensure that you never fail. You're not always going to make that sale, but you can always meet those secondary objectives. And when it comes to asking them to make that final commitment, a lot of times you just need to ask. A lot of salespeople, they'll just ramble on, and the prospects, maybe they're initially interested, but the salesperson never asks them for commitment. They never ask them to take action. Don't be afraid to ask. Maybe they need to take it to the decision maker, to their boss, run it by them. This is homework for the prospect to do. Get them committed to your product or service. Maybe they're not going to buy it right this minute, but get them to talk to their decision maker perhaps, or get them to read that literature that maybe they asked for. And finally, for email. After you give a successful call with them, shoot them an email to recap what you talked about over the call. This way, if they're interested in your product or service, they can just read through that and get some more information out of it. All right, so this was the conclusion of video 4. Tune in next time. We're going to go over some final thoughts.